recording. All right, welcome back to another episode of Work in Programming. This week, I am joined by Arunoda Susiripala, Sri Lankan developer, prolific in the open source world. He's been working with MeteorJS. He is recently working with Vercel and has since moved on to work on his own projects and blog and whatnot. And so I'm really excited to get a chance to sit down with you and talk. Thanks for joining me.
Okay, yeah, that's really cool, and thanks for this great introduction. And it's really nice to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so the way that I had first heard of you was when I was working on MeteorJS projects, and I think almost every really helpful tutorial or guide that I found came from Kadira on the blog, and most of the time it was from you in the chat rooms and whatnot. So I'd love to kind of get a kind of a picture of how you I guess got started in web development, and then also how did that lead into you working on MeteorJS?
Right, it's about getting started web development. I think I did some work with. Have you heard about? There's a project. There's an application called Dreamweaver. I think it was
yeah.
I started my dynamic web apps development using Dreamweaver. It's just like a drag and drop thing. So I didn't do any code at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So then I started learning Java at the school level. Then I think I'm at the university level. No, just before that I started working with PHP.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was the main difference. I started coding web programming, and it was really fun at that time.
And were you doing WordPress or just
no, just PHP,
okay.
Creating things from scratch. Maybe that's why I trying to dig deeper and try to understand things, because I started with pure frameworks. Then later on I try to contribute, and then I got into open source. So when I was at the university, I participated in a program called Google Summer of Code. It's a 3-month program. So you paired with open source project, and then you have some chance to implement the real working feature. And then and that was my real experience with the open source community. I worked with Joomla one time. And then after that, I work with the project called status.net. I think right now it's not there. It's a open source version of Twitter. I think they're dead now. So they have a public version called Identica. Maybe you have heard about that.
I haven't.
Yeah. yeah, it's pretty old. I think 2004, I guess maybe.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, that was my first introduction to open source. Then after that, I discovered Nodejs, and then I was introduced to JavaScript world and trying new frameworks and experimenting with things. Yeah,
very cool. And then so what year were you getting into Node.js? Because it sounds like you got started with all of this quite early, so you must have
I don't exactly remember the year, but I think the early days. I remember Brian Dahl is giving an introduction to the Node.js. He was creating a simple web server in a single file, and you run up. It was amazing at that time.
Yeah,
at that time, if you want to create a web server, you need to have a dedicated server like Apache in your PHP world and doing some PHP stuff. And then if you want Java stuff, then you have to run a Tomcat kind of server. And there are some standalone versions, but then it was really hard to work with. But with Node.js, it was really amazing. Yeah,
you can get started with an entire server from just a single JavaScript file.
And it's really amazing things.
That's really cool. And then so once you got into Node, so it sounds like you were contributing to open source your entire career. How did you have the confidence to do that, or is it just you just wanted to work on something? And
I think apart from open source project, I work with some of my projects locally. I work with some like SMS platform and create some stuff. So I was trying to like maybe I like to like contribute and I try to like write blog posts and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the reason like I'm trying to do things openly because I don't really worry about like code quality and if someone's trying to judge me looking at the code. I'm not really worried about that, and so that's a reason maybe.
Yeah, no, I like that because I mean, I guess if you're a bit of a perfectionist, sometimes it can because I found it very hard to try and get into that sort of stuff. Probably just because I'm afraid of being judged, but it's good to just get started, I guess.
I think no one really actually trying to blame you if you do something wrong. I think everyone does wrong things anyway, so then it's totally fine to like try to do something. Maybe if you try to if you think you're doing something wrong, maybe there's something really new, and maybe a new way of doing things. So then it doesn't matter. Like just just maybe try to open source everything and then speak, write blog posts, and so.
I love it. So when you started Kadira, had you already been working with Meteor at that time?
Yeah, I think how we start Kadira is
Mhm,
I think I didn't have any plans to like create Kadira when I was working with Meteor community.
mhm,
I was doing a lot of freelance work at that time.
mhm,
So then one of my client want to like create an app using MeteorJS. At the same time, I was like trying to do something new. So then I took it's a really good opportunity. So I started working with that project and I learned Meteor. Then I try to so while I'm working on the project, then I had to like dig deeper and try to find things. And there are some problems. Then I try to fix them, create projects, and maybe blog posts. And
mhm,
that's it's completely a natural thing. And then after a few months, then I really want to like I really like working with the community, and
mhm,
so then I want to like focus my whole time working with the open source ETA projects
mhm,
rather than doing the client work. So then I decided that's why I started the blog website called Meteor Hacks.
mhm,
I was trying to contribute and trying to blog posts and so on. So then at some point I need some money to like live, right?
mhm.
So
Yeah.
then I was thinking maybe I can do something. So yeah, that's why we started Kadira. Originally, I want to create a hosting platform at that time, but
Mhm,
then so MDG, the company behind Meteor, they're already working with like the project hosting project. So
mhm,
then it's like a conflict. So then I'm a small guy and I'm trying to work with the community. So I think it was not a really good thing to do.
mhm.
So it's really hard to win if you're trying to compete with the organization that you're working with. So then
Makes
I
sense.
decided I took the other approach and create the performance monitoring platform. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's history.
Yeah. And then I guess so when you were building the performance monitoring system, did you find a lot of early success with it just based off of like I guess the Meteor Hacks reputation and being kind of integral in the community?
Yeah, I think it's not just product itself. I think it has to do with the like community because I was well known at that time.
Mhm,
So then I think it's both. Like like partly it's the community, and I know how things work in the feature JS and how things like that. Then I use that knowledge to like create a tool. It's both. I cannot like say it's 50% community and 50% code or something like that, but I think
mhm.
it's both.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. And then I guess so the company you ran it for a couple of years and then you wound up selling the APM product to MDG, or how did that wind up?
Right. So it's a it's a very interesting story. So like MDG, after a few years of Meteor experiment
Mhm,
or just a project, so they started working with Apollo. So then, so everyone is trying to work with the GraphQL and trying to like create apps using JavaScript.
mhm,
And then seems like people really don't want to use Meteor 100% of time. So some people want to like create another version of using plain JavaScript
Mhm.
frameworks. So maybe that's the reason they start focus more on the Apollo. So then
Mhm.
uh, I was thinking what else I can do. So then basically my APM is based on Meteor platform. So
Mhm.
then if that platform goes down, so then I had to like pivot that company into some other place. So
Mhm.
that's the reason. But I didn't have courage at that time to like do something like that. Start again.
Mhm.
So then so I thought it's a good idea to work with MDG to try to do something. So they really helped me to like they actually took some of the code base,
Mhm.
and I think they ran it for maybe a couple of years. I really don't know about that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think they helped me on that way. So I yeah.
And then I guess so at that time when you sold or when you gave them over like the code base, you didn't continue maintaining that. I guess you changed your focus entirely.
Yeah, exactly. At the time, I really like want to change what I do.
Mhm.
Actually, I was already doing that way before. I think maybe 2-3 months ago. At that
Mhm.
time. So then, yeah, I want to keep focus on the new things I do. Yeah, that's the reason.
Cool. And then is that around the time when you started building out Storybook?
Yeah, I think it's a bit early, I guess. I
Mm.
think yeah, I think at the same time maybe. So when MDG is focusing on Palo, so I was thinking like I should like try to focus on some other thing.
Mhm.
Uh, Even before, like I had a like idea to like create this kind of like a UI component like environment, and it's not 100% new idea. I think we had something for the Meteor community. I don't really remember the project.
Mm.
It was from the guys at so now so they had a company recently acquired by Browser Stack. What was the company? Let me think. Percy. So the Percy.js. So basically, so before that company, they was doing something called Respond. I don't exactly remember the name.
Mm.
Maybe Respondly or something like that. So they had like a yeah, they had a version of Storybook
Mhm.
for the Unity community. So I took that idea and
Mhm.
then try to create a generic tool for the React ecosystem. I did some changes for sure, like add some new ideas like knobs.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's then we started using that. Then and I had a plan to like create a commercial product out of that, but
Mhm.
then I didn't really do that, and I was changed my focus into something else.
Mhm. Yeah, I remember because I remember when I first saw Storybook, I liked the idea, but then I saw I remember seeing like all of the commercial product and seeing how it was like hosted. And I was like, oh, okay, so this is for like bigger companies. So I didn't actually work with it off the bat. I played around with it a little bit, and I liked that you could put your components in there. I think early on I didn't get it, but a lot of people really love the project. I remember like it was kind of like I mean, it just makes your code better, right? Like you can kind of build your UI components separately. Because prior to that, if you're working on, say, a Meteor app with React components, you're spinning up your entire Meteor server with all its dependencies, and then like seeing your UI rebuild and re-render as you're going. And then if you're trying to build out like a new flow entirely, I mean, it feels like it's just it's fairly simple. Like it's a basic idea, but it made a huge difference in like development workflow, I guess, for UI development. Um,
Yeah, of course, definitely.
yeah, and then how did because so I know that originally you had started it as a like a commercial product, but you open sourced it off the bat and then maintained it um from your team, or was it like V1? Was that not open source?
Oh, which commercial product? Are you talking about?
Sorry, Storybook.
No, actually, we didn't actually create this commercial product.
Oh, okay.
It's just the idea. We had some idea to create a commercial product, but I think we did like a storybook. I don't remember. So we did like a kind of MVP. I think after a few months of the storybook,
Mhm.
but then I think we didn't actually like continue that project. I don't exactly remember why we didn't do that because
Mhm.
I was working. I was focused more on the next days kind of thing. Maybe.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the yeah.
And is
That's
that so? I guess after that is when you is that when so when you said that you were moving on to something new, is that when you moved on to working with Vercel, or did you? I guess at the time Zeit, or did you?
yeah. I think at the same time I didn't have any plans to join Vercel at exactly that time. I was working with Next.js. I thought like Next is really cool project, and
Mhm,
then it may be the next big thing in the JavaScript community. Uh, I so it was very early that time, so nobody really cares about that. so so then I took the challenge. Maybe I started working with Next and trying to contribute.
mhm,
And then at the same time, I was looking for a job. Then
mhm.
I talked to Raush G, and he was really happy to like take me. Yeah, then I started working with Next. Yeah, after that.
Very cool. And then when you were at Zeit, um, you were maintaining Next, but was that your full time job or?
Yes, yes and no. Initially, it was my full-time job. I was working with Next, maintaining Next about maybe 1 year or maybe 1.5 years.
Mhm,
Then I was like introduced to the core Vercel product, Zeit product, and then I was maintaining some backend stuff. Uh, so that's yeah, maybe I did some front end work as well, but mainly I was working on some core product in Vercel. Yeah, then I didn't had time to like work on the next stuff. So then Tim took all the project, and he simply like make it really awesome. And yeah,
mhm.
that's yeah.
And yeah, I guess Next has changed quite a bit since then, but it's I mean at its core, it's kind of still the same platform. It's like server side rendering made easy, and now all the fancy stuff that makes it just like the full fledged Jamstack framework that we have now.
I need to add one thing about Next. I think Next
Hmm.
is not exactly about server side rendering like platform. I think
Mm,
that was the so that's how we. I think it's about how we actually sell the framework earlier.
mm,
Actually, about Next, it's not about the server side rendering approach. It took so popular. I think it's very simple to use the framework, so you don't really have to like use Redux to like fetch data and to do stuff because you can simply fetch data and
mhm,
then try to render pages. And I like the experience you had with PHP.
mm,
I think it's a whole experience rather than the server side rendering approach, and that's why Next took over like competing with all other projects.
mm.
Yeah, that's how I think about it. It's not about the server side renderings aspect, but the experience, whole experience you got.
True. Yeah, I like that. That's very true. So then you chose to leave Next earlier this year.
Yes.
So what are you working on now, and what do you? I guess what is your vision for the? Because I know that you're getting into open source, and you're also doing some blogging. Like I've started following you on DevTO, and you've got some interesting stuff about Lighthouse, and you're kind of exploring the whole ecosystem. I'd love to hear more about what you're working on.
Yeah, sure. So basically, I was working with Vercel for like I think almost 4 years, and honestly, I didn't have much time to like work on the open source community at that time. So it's not about the any policy with Vercel, but I personally I was enjoying working with what I do, and
Mhm,
then I lost interest actually. Not actually. It's not the right term, but I don't know how to explain that. So
mhm,
basically, I didn't have time to work on open source projects, but at
mhm,
the same time, I think like I should have done something. So then, yeah, I think now actually there are so many cool things. Maybe I could part of some of those things. So then,
mhm,
yeah. Anyway, so then I missed a lot of stuff. Maybe 3 years.
yeah.
So then, so I was thinking like, okay, now it's time to like, okay, stop what I was doing at Vercel. So I need something new. So
Mhm,
that's why I left. So I want to try new something new. So then about what I do right now. So basically, I have like kind of two goals. So when I was living Vercel, the first thing is education. I had some ideas about how education should be and
mhm,
how we can teach people. So that's why I created this kind of platform, I don't know, like called Get Started, and try to expose my like education ideas and how we can teach. So that's the whole purpose, and I'm creating a Next.js course based out of that. So that's whole experiment, and that's what trying to do right now. At the same time, I was thinking like web development should be much easier. Like right now, for example, like if you want to build a application, maybe simple block, maybe add some comment system. So then you have to like fetch data, and you need to like you need to do all the caching. Maybe there are some projects like SWR to like make them simple, but still you have to make some queries and try to do stuff. And then it's really hard. Like if you're coming into the web development right now, and I think it was really hard to like do some. You had to learn GraphQL maybe. You need to like work about caching and how you can communicate the APIs and so on. And it's really hard. Like so, but at the same time, like so you do the same thing over and over again. So I think there's a real opportunity there to try to fix that. And then yeah, I don't know how. And there are some good projects out there trying to do right now, and I want to mention that about open source world. I tried quite a few technologies I think last few weeks, and one of the interesting projects I saw is called GQless. So basically, the idea is you have a GraphQL schema, and then so basically with this code generation tool, so they can actually generate the whole client library for you. So then you can simply forget about GraphQL and try to interact with JavaScript, and create the UI component. You simply like fetching data by simply using the schema kind of thing. A schema, I mean, like in JavaScript. So it's really interesting project, and I think we need more projects like that, like trying to like simplify things, and it's not exactly like abstracting things away, but trying to simplify things and let things be so simple. Yeah, that's a really interesting project. And there are some like like Webflow, and they do really great stuff. Like you don't really want to do stuff, but I think at the same time we need some sort of open source tools like that. And yeah, not exactly like Webflow clone, and there's but so like when you're coding, we choose to code because of the reason, like so it's we can do whatever we want to do. At the same time, there should be a way to reuse things. I mean, components level as well, like whole functionality level.
And do you think that would be like individual packages that kind of repurpose, like let's say a login flow or a comment
Ye-
section?
yeah, I was thinking about that. Let's say you are building a app. Uh, so let's say you are building like a really big commercial product. Or maybe let's imagine. So what we're trying to like imagine. Anyway, maybe Facebook. No, that's too big. Uh, anyway,
Yeah.
if you're working some big project, maybe you need a blog, and then you need a comment system, and definitely you need a login system, and maybe you need to like create some generic tables kind of thing, like dashboard kind of things. So then so you don't really have to like do a lot of things with this ideal framework. So basically, if you need a login framework, you simply get some let's say login component, and then it comes with all the like database logic and how to like store things, and also UI kind of thing. And you can have like comment blogging pages kind of thing, everything there. Then if you want to like change the data, so let's say it's using a Firebase, but let's say your company doesn't want to use Firebase, they want to use something else. Let's say they want to use MongoDB. So then you can simply change the data layer, and it change the data layer for everything. And also for the UI framework, let's say right now you are using like Chakra UI. Uh, just the comes in, then you don't want to like you want to like do something custom, and then you can simply using some other UI like layer. You can simply replace the theme UI layer, and then it updates everything. And actually, it's a really easy way to like create apps. At the same time, let's say you want to add new functionality, you can simply start extending stuff you have, this open source, I mean, community components, or maybe you can create something new from the scratch.
Hmm.
I like to like it's a rough idea. I like to call about as like a zero framework approach. So basically, you don't have a framework. Like it's not a framework actually,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe you start with some components and are trying to provide it by the framework. But maybe after 5 years of runtime, so there's no like framework code at all. So it's just completely new things
Mm-hmm.
you wrote. You
Yeah,
made this.
because it kind of sounds, in a way, it sounds similar to like how MeteorJS had like, you could install the auth flow, and it's, you install auth and you've just got it working and you've got a user-based system. Or if you want to install like migrations, you've just installed the framework and then you have migrations. But it's like, it's that, but almost split out by vertical, I guess. Or
Yeah. Yeah, I think it has some of course it has some roots to Meteor for sure. I think still I think Meteor is like the easiest framework. The if you want to build something quickly, and definitely you should check out Meteor. Like it's the framework to go. I think you cannot beat that thing. Like there's no other framework for something like that. I still believe that. So then, and there are some problems with that framework as well. So we already know about that. Yeah, I think, and also and I know like personally, and I know with the community members, like it has actually changed a lot, and they have now like a lot of capabilities and a lot of like database support. And yeah, I think yeah, there is some good things as well in these times. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's like it's different.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely changed quite a bit. I haven't used the latest versions, but I've heard that they've kind of integrated the GraphQL stuff, and you can use a different database than just Mongo now.
Mhm.
And I think they've moved more towards, because I remember when I was working with it, we were trying to use React for the entire application. But what we ended up finding was we had tied everything to like the data binding. So we would have like the real time effect. But in the application I was working on, we really didn't need it. And it kind of felt like we were fighting against it all the time, trying to force it from like, updating the database automatically. And like, we're just like, okay, no, we just want to have a post request to save it. But I think some of the resources actually from Kadira and Meteor Hacks actually had quite a bit of stuff around like separating the UI layer a bit, and it made using all of that like kind of makes things a little bit easier to deal with. And then like Meteor itself seems like it's going in a really interesting direction. I haven't worked with it myself for a while, but
Right. And I think you made a really interesting point about real time. I think real time is really cool, and that was like a core selling point of Meteor at that time.
mhm,
But in practice, I think it's really hard to do, like to make things work real time. I think still there's no any database project that does that real time thing really good.
mm,
Other than I think Firebase does that really well, but
mhm,
I think no other like no other like framework with Postgres and doing that. So I think real time is hard to do implement, and there are a lot of challenges. And that's so then easiest approach is like prefetch, poll.
mm,
So I think that's the approach we took with Vercel dashboard, enabling
mhm,
the dashboard. Like yeah, you could actually fetch things. That simplifies everything. So I think yeah, we can forget about the real time approach, and then we can simplify a lot of things if we do that. So
mhm.
that's something we could think about.
Yeah, the SWR idea seems like it solves a lot of those issues without necessarily, like, I think you're still technically polling, but like the fact that it hooks into different life cycle methods and like user interactions to like force the updates and stuff is makes a lot more sense versus like
Yeah.
having your server have to push it out. Because I know that, like, if you have WebSocket connections, you can only open so many before you need to split out the server into another instance, and then that causes scaling issues, and it's kind of like a two-way problem.
Yeah, I think so. I think eventually like it will get fixed. I think
Mm,
one of the blocker could be one thing from the database side, and the other thing would be from the deployment side, especially lambdas. Right now they don't have like streaming support.
mm,
So then it's really hard to do WebSocket kind of thing. So then I think yeah, if they I think both fix those things, and I think in the future, I don't know the like how long, but like you could still real time everything. But anyway, like for the end user, it doesn't matter sometimes. Like yeah,
mm,
sometimes real time projects are really useful. Like if you're building a chat application, for sure you definitely need real time interactions.
mm.
But then it's just a dashboard kind of thing. You don't really want that.
Yeah, or if you're on a blog, you don't really want the
Yeah,
content to be changing
yeah,
as you're
yeah,
viewing it.
yeah, yeah, totally.
I like the newest version of, or the newer versions of Next.js are starting to get the statically generated pages, and I really
Mhm.
like that because I started working into Gatsby a while ago, and I was kind of playing around with it, but personally I found that like it's good for getting started, and it's got a lot of integrations and stuff. So I think there's like a huge merit there, but as soon as I like a lot of the applications that I would be working on, I felt like we really couldn't do it with Gatsby because you're rendering out, say, like thousands of pages, and if you're trying to do that every time at build time, it feels a little hard to do. Um, but like so Next.js, the way that they're going about it with like uh, being able to rebuild progressively at runtime is really interesting. I know that you had a blog article about that. I was curious if you have any ideas about like what you think like the future of frameworks like that. Like, do you think that there's anything out there that you're really interested in right now? I know that I feel like you've
Ah,
probably looked into both.
right. I think I have used Gatsby. I mean, for the Hello World kind of thing, but I don't know. I'm not in position to like compare Gatsby and Next because I'm not like heavy Gatsby user.
Hmm.
So then I really cannot compare Gatsby with Next than what they do.
Hmm.
But on the things about Next, actually, the reason is about I think one of the thing Gatsby has like incremental builds support, right? I think so. If you change the blog post, then they have like a server which incrementally builds stuff.
Hmm.
But
They're
the
getting
approach
towards
that
it.
yeah, I think the approach Next did was really interesting. The reason is you don't need any specific support from a hosting provider. So you it's baked into the framework itself. Like you can create a static page dynamically.
Hmm.
I mean on demand. Like if you change the content, and then that's really nice. I think that's the I think key differentiator. I guess like you have like everything in the framework, so then you could actually deploy it anywhere, and you could take with your own hardware if you like. Even like I don't know if people who do that these days, but it's possible. Like you can
Hmm.
deploy it anywhere.
Oh, yeah, it makes a lot of sense for a lot of projects because, so for instance, like a lot of like enterprises and whatnot would love to use these sorts of things, but uh, when they're given the option of you can host it on your own, AWS or your own internal cloud, but we'd prefer if you put it on, say, Vercel. They wouldn't necessarily agree to that a lot of the time, whether it's justified or not. I feel like there's kind of a pushback on that. So then like having the portability of like knowing that you can deploy that server in your own infrastructure is a lot nicer versus like I feel like Gatsby's probably eventually going to go down the route of like open sourcing the incremental builds. I feel like they kind of have to, and it'll be like a huge benefit to the community. But I think the lock into the server is kind of
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. Like I don't feel yeah, I understand what they're doing about the commercial aspect, but at the same time, like it's a different thing. Like yeah, you have the, uh about the future. I think it's also on the roadmap. Like right now, you have in the static regeneration. So basically, incremental build version of Next. You have to like kind of like have a cache timeout to regenerate the page. but then in the future there'll be like where you can like do a webhook kind of thing. So
Mm,
then you can automatically rebuild the like, based on the server. Then from the clients, I mean from the end users, they will always get the updated version anyway
mhm,
all the time. I think that would be a killer product, and I think there are some challenges doing that. So let's say I think if Vercel wants to like build that feature out of the box, so actually they could add support for the Vercel platform quite easily.
mhm,
And but the problem would be like having to trying to add that functionality to the framework itself, Next.js framework, because like
mm,
let's say you're running the same application in multiple servers outside of
mm,
the Vercel. So then you need to have some communication layer between all these servers to like cloud the webhook kind of thing. I
mm.
think that's why it's kind of like a delayed project. So then you need to find out a way to do that. Yeah, I don't know how I didn't involved with the project itself, like trying to do that. But I think that's the idea set. Like so,
Mm.
trying to add that feature to the framework first, and then try to like yeah. Um,
Yeah,
so
that makes a lot of sense. I could imagine. Like I hadn't even thought of that, but yeah, it's built to be distributed right off the bat. And like Gatsby has an advantage there where all it exports is static files that you're serving. There's no server to deal with. So if you're rebuilding, you just have to trigger it on your one rebuild server and your one build server. But if you're doing it with Next, it's almost like so part of it can be dynamically generated because you don't necessarily know the content at build time all the time. And then you're trying to also then carry that across all of your different instances of the application as you're trying to scale it up. So that's it's interesting. So did you find that when you're working on Vercel that they're like because you were working on some of the infrastructure stuff, what are some of like the unique challenges that you're facing there that like you wouldn't encounter as like if you're just doing freelance and let's say you're just deploying a single server or you're using like Galaxy or something to host it, you don't necessarily need to deal with that spinning up of things. I'm curious if there's anything.
I didn't exactly get the point. I'm a question
Oh,
like what do you mean like
so like when you're so like let's say I'm working on a single like an application developer, like I'm working on a website for a client.
okay.
I deploy it. Let's say I use those systems. I don't necessarily have to deal with. It's kind of like the benefit of having like a Vercel or whatever, right? I
Oh,
don't have
okay.
to deal with the nuances of where it deploys to, managing multiple different servers, and
Right,
making
right,
sure
right.
everything's up to date.
Right. I okay, got it. Like I think like I think nobody really wants to like manage stuff. But I'm basically like so let's say I'm a web developer.
Mhm,
So I don't really need to worry about how servers gonna work. Like I just want like create a web application, then I deploy that, and that's why actually Heroku was really popular. So
mhm,
basically, so you could build simple like Node or any they started with Ruby on Rails app and
mhm,
simply deploy to them, and they will take up the scaling, hosting, and everything. So then that's the same I'm sure Vercel did, and then they did for the lambdas and static, basically lambdas.
mhm,
So I think yeah, that's the future. I guess I think you don't really want to like manage stuff you don't really want to do.
mhm,
So I think I think that's the reason, and I think that was a Netlify doing the same thing, and the
mhm,
Vercel is I think I think I think it's the future. And even with the databases right now, we have Firebase, and a lot of people really want to use that Firebase because they don't want to like mess around with the actual database. And at the same time, we have new stuff like Fauna, which is like I think, and also like CMSs, and that's popular because the people want really easy things to do. They don't really want to manage. I think in the future, everything will be managed. um it's a tough job.
mhm. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I guess like managed services are kind of you have a cost to it, but it saves you so much time that it's probably almost always worth it. Uh, I've definitely tried to, build applications where like I just try to do everything myself because we're like, oh no, we don't have the budget for a $50 a month database. But then you spend, let's say, a few weeks building it, and you're already well over
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah, I think if you're starting out, I think it's really nice to do things like that, trying to experiment how things work.
Mm,
And but I think maybe not something you do in all the time. Like for example, like so I was really I'm really I mean not expert, like very familiar with MongoDB because I was using it for a long time, and
mhm,
I actually like try to manage it in a real, I mean, a lot of clusters of MongoDB with Kadira.
mhm,
And then I know ins and out about everything about MongoDB, then how I can tune that. Uh, but even today, I don't really want to like host it myself. I use like their hosted solution,
mm,
MongoDB Atlas. The reason is I don't have time to like work on those stuff because I know like it's possible to do, but when there's a problem, then I have to go through and do these stuffs. So it's better someone could do those stuff for me.
mhm.
Yeah, I think that's the story of managed. But still, it's really nice to like learn how things work, and it
Mhm.
helps me to like help us to do things a lot.
Definitely. And I feel like it also helps, like, once you get into those managed services, or when you're deploying things, like, let's say if you use, even just if you're just using AWS or something like that, like, you're not fully managed. Like, it helps to know that stuff. Like, setting up my own Mongo database, and I wasn't working at the scale where, we had like thousands of instances, or even like dozens or anything like that. But just setting up like more than one MongoDB database in different regions, and then trying to sync the data uh, is kind of complicated. At least I found it very, very difficult to get set up, and then um, it makes you see the value, I guess, right? And also you kind of have an idea of how it actually is working in the background, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, about that thing, I think still Mongo is the like only DB you. I think no, it's really hard to say only, but it's one of the best platform that you have all the scaling capability inside the database. So then, if you think about sharding and the stuff with like Postgres, then you have to like get things from some other places and create proxies and so on. So
hmm,
with Mongo, yeah, everything is built in, and you could actually do it yourself. But I don't think anyone would do that themselves, like um, uh, personal level. I mean, like if they've been a hobby project kind of thing. I'm not a hobby project. Like team is small. I don't think they would do that themselves. Like
hmm.
uh,
So early on, and I guess today even, you've been really exceptionally good at building a community. I know that some of the people even in the Meteor community, when you left, they were just like, "Oh no, Meteor's dead." Um, so like, I'm really curious, like how you go about creating content. Is it just out of curiosity, or do you think about other people? Like, how do you do that, or what's your
right,
process?
yeah, I think yeah, I think I know what you're talking about, this community. Then when I left, then yeah, some people came with me. I think that was not intentional, and
Mhm,
I think I don't actually blame them or blame myself for doing that. But I think that was not something I think I think I wanted to do. Like it's happened anyway.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Some people didn't like that, and yeah. Anyway, like it's a story. Anyway, like about how creating content, I think the reason I am doing that, so if I'm writing something, especially technical content, I
Mm,
want to like go deeper and I'm trying to understand what maybe the everything does. Then I experiment with my local machine and trying to like reproduce things and so on. Then I try to create this content. I try to explain it in a plain language,
mhm,
and maybe add some examples. And yeah, then I try to create them. Uh, yeah, there's no special secret of creating content, but I try to like try everything myself
mhm.
by myself, and try to explain in a clean language. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, maybe that's the reason. About creating communities, I don't actually. I think I didn't actually create a sort of community like so recently, or maybe like involved with the community. But I started right now. I tried to like more active on Twitter, and
Mhm.
I'm sharing stuff. Yeah, it's really interesting to do that. I think I really enjoy if someone likes my article or so. So then, if yeah, that's the whole thing.
Cool. Yeah, I guess, and so like with that sort of thing, you do you have like a system around it, or you just do it when you feel like you don't have like a schedule for yourself or anything like that?
Yeah, I think I try to stick with the schedule to like create blog posts. Initially, it was like currently I was trying to do once every week, but then at the same time, and right now I have my own Next.js course. Then I
Mm,
was creating content for that. So then I missed that target. Yeah, I think having a the goal should be that should be really interesting. Like you stick with something and then you continue with that. I think it is something we should do anyway,
mm,
like time boxing everything. So then you could do more if you do that. But at the same time, like, I think we should not like create content just for like creating for sake. I'm like, so we should try to investigate stuff and create content.
yeah.
Uh, and another reason about my how I create content actually. So basically, so you have documentation on for all the projects.
Hmm.
So then I'm trying to create content. I'm not trying to like go through the documentation and recreate that in a different language,
Mm,
but I'm trying to like go deeper and maybe find out things which are not available in the documentation, and maybe some people have problems with that. Then I try to create content based on that, so
mm,
it will be new content, so you don't have that kind of content anywhere. So then that's a way to differentiate yourself, and it's really hard to do, like trying to find cases like that. But
hmm.
then if you find something like that, if you create content out of that, yeah, that will be really good. So then people will love that.
Yeah, I like that idea because I like, so for instance, you had an article recently about the Next.js, like how the static site generation stuff works. And even the document, like I read through the documentation, I was trying to understand like how everything worked together. And then it was kind of, it was like it's more or less there, but it's all technically written out, and it's more focused around like this is what you'll do. And I like that your article kind of just said, okay, well, this is what actually happens behind the scenes, and you had an example of each possible situation, which is, I don't know, it was just really useful. um, so that was, I like what they're saying there. Like it's kind of just like adding more information to what's already available, and um, yeah, that's really great. I love that. Is there anything else that you might want to talk about?
Yeah, but I think we talk about lot of things, and anyway, I like to like give some like maybe like trying to like give some ideas, not ideas. Right now, there are some full stack frameworks.
Mm,
So I think it's really interesting to see frameworks like that, and maybe you could. I'm not like asking to like go use them right now, but I think
mhm,
I should be really nice to focus on them. What they're trying to do, and there are three things I have come up with this few weeks.
mhm,
One thing is Redwood JS. So
mhm.
it's a like you can think about a Ruby on Rails for JavaScript. So that's
Mm,
one project, and there's another
interesting.
one called Blitz. Basically, it's the same idea, and but they use Next behind the scene, so then they can get all the benefits of Next.js.
Ooh, I like that.
But at the same time, they have to like struggle with the problem with Next. Not exactly problem, but the problem specific their approach.
Mm,
Then they have to deal with the Next rules. So that's one project.
mm,
Second project, and there's a new one. I saw that in the Redwood JS community last night, I guess. It's called Bison. Bison. It's also using Next.js and use Nexus and for the GraphQL layer,
mm,
and all these projects using Prisma as a data layer.
mhm.
I think yeah, those three projects will be really interesting to see in the next coming months. What they're trying to do, and yeah, it will be really cool
Very
to
cool. I
see.
love it. I think I'll definitely have to check these out and share them around. But I, yeah. And have you used all of these a little bit?
Yeah, I tried both Blitz and Redwood, and I actually discussed with some of the co-people at the community. But the Bison is something really new. I didn't know about the like people who create that. I just got the news.
Hmm.
And one of the interesting thing was like so basically even though these are competing projects and they actually like talk to each other in one way or another, like in different forums.
Hmm.
And that's something I really interested in. Like you have competing projects, but at the same time you try to communicate with each other, and that's open source. Like that's how we build projects. That's interesting.
Yeah, I love it. It's not, yeah, because at the end of the day, like an open source project isn't necessarily like, it's not a winner take all type thing, right? It's you
Yeah.
know, Meteor.js can exist, and so can Ruby on Rails, or even like, I guess, Blitz now, and Redwood looks interesting because I like the idea of being able to reuse like a vertical slice of your code, like what you were saying. It'll save so much time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, did you have anything else that any other projects or anything that you're looking into?
Right. Yeah, one of the projects I really yeah, actually excited about is Nextdot. So it's a authentication layer for Next.js. So basically, you can add a simple npm package and that's one API route, and then that's all. Then you have like a lot of like capabilities like add the authentication system. So you could add any social authentication login system, maybe password based, and it's something I think it's even little bit simpler than to set up than Auth0
Hmm.
in a way, but it's not like exactly Auth0 has more functionality, but for the initial setup, like Nextdot is really amazing. So that's something you should check out. Like if you're building Next.js, it's a authentication setup, and there's a way you can even use with Auth0 if you want to do that
Hmm.
as well.
Very cool. Yeah, because that's it's funny actually. One of my previous uh, workplaces is actually trying to do something similar, and they're yeah, I think they're just trying to do that like reusable auth endpoint for any app that they're building. So
Okay,
maybe I'll point them at Nextdot.
nice, awesome.
Cool. If you were to talk to a new developer who is, let's say, earlier in their career or just getting started, and they, let's say, they want to kind of go down the same route, they want to be able to get into open source, but they also want to be able to maybe start their own company, client work, all of those sorts of things. Like, what advice would you have to people really early on that you haven't really heard a lot?
Right. I think this is the like a like quite unpopular thing. Maybe not everyone try to do. So like there are so many new people coming to all the places. Like so then it's really try to hard like so even do you do open source things, it's really hard to like try to like get notified. So
Mhm.
then the way you can actually get around with this, actually trying to like create something original, like trying to find out the problem that nobody actually solved,
Hmm.
and then maybe create a solution around that, maybe talk about that problem, and that's how you actually can get into any place.
Hmm.
So that's how I think about that. Trying to create blogs, maybe videos, things which people really want to know about, but there are no content around that. So that's
Hmm.
how you can actually like win the race.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Arunoda.
Sure.
This has been great.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for having me in the talk. Yeah, that's really interesting.